Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the angelic realm. I'm shooting in front of you today with my DJI Osmo 3. This is not an ad by any means, but work with me here while I try to figure out the angles, the lighting, the audio, just the little knickknacks that dictates a good video from bad audio, from great audio, from cohesive content. And as I sit here in front of you today, it is officially November 24th, 2025, an exciting time in our historical feats within Gaia's realm. And as you light workers may or may not be aware that there's been some suspicious activity happening on the sun's surface, this will become more and more evident that something is askew, leaning towards the end of this year. The end of November, beginning of December will be a monumental time within the spiritual realm of opening up into a perception field that in which we've missed to be true and to be real up until this perspective in our reality field. And as I sit here and touch base on the reality of it all, I would just like to point out that as the solar flash progresses to illuminate our atmosphere, we will begin to see our environment change as it has never changed or shifted into a reality field within Gaia's field and upon Gaia's surface before. What do I mean by this, you guys? I don't even know how to cohesively and coherently describe all of the aspects of the changing and shifting tides to a whole entire community, society field, humanity field that's been living so much so in a distortion field of amnesia for all of this time. For all of this time, residing upon Gaia's surface has been a time within a distortional field that we chose to everlastingly sip through, sift through, shift through within lifetimes upon lifetimes of reincarnation cycles that never ever ends. And as we near the great, perplexing solar activity that has been illuminating our skies for the previous few months, we will come into a solar maximum of sorts. A maximum so distortional in its reality field that there has never ever been such a maximum that we can cohesively and coherently come to terms with on our charts, on our scales, in the physicality of the realm of what is. And as our great central sun begins its descent of a parts and portions, 30% of its consciousness to be blasted into Earth's frequency, into Earth's atmosphere, just know that there's not a single planet in this quantum verse that is not watching in defeat, in defeated frequencies that they sit in the everlasting knowing that the quantum verse itself will begin to retract itself into the singularity of one as we hit into the ascension frequencies of what is. And what do I mean by this? Defeat is a word so frequently frequented upon in our reality field in the 2D and 3D world. And yet, the ultimate meaning within the meaning of the word defeat that I use in this very moment in time could not, will not, is not a part of the coherency that is within our reality field, all that it has ever been in our frequency field of all of the meanings, defeat that you can ever tranquilize into to be true and to be real. As within this reincarnation cycles that never ever ends, consciousness as is consciousness spread out into the entirety of our quantum verse, not just inside the interior bubble of Earth's sphere and the external bubble within our solar system, within and without this frequency field. And as consciousness dictates, all planetary fields hold a consciousness in itself. All of the planetary fields within our quantum verse will shift to alleviate the distortion field within itself towards the direction that in that of Gaia's field in which we reside upon. So as you sit here in this moment in time, a few days prior to the solar flash, a few weeks prior to humanity's realization of the divinity that we are, prior to every single fractal soul on this face of this planet coming to a realization that something is a little bit off, that something's a little bit too real. As we've been living in these fields, living in a distortion field of amnesia, in seeming normalcy that we sit in. Just know that in this time, as I sit here as of November 24th, 2025, that what is to come in a humanity's field that sits in the essence of amnesia is what shall forever be remembered as the greatest awakening within our societal field towards the angelic realm, towards God's direction of what is, towards the remembrance and the memories that we hold on an oversoul level prior to fractaling into our bodies within this quantum verse, within our earth sphere, within these little bodies of ours, this physicality of a body of ours that we sit in. And as you sit in your body listening to my transmission, just know that you sit not so much in a correct placement, but never in a wrong placement within the neutrality field of what is. No matter where you sit on the scale of darkness versus brightness, on this scale that I speak of within our quantum verse, in which we've allowed ourselves to shift in and out of within this frequency field, you sit in a placement of overarching neutrality. And yet your perception field has not been so much so. Ever since you were able to drop down into these reincarnation cycles that never ever ends, as the whole purpose of this game had always been for you to trudge through our creation field to experience reality from the opposition of the brightness in which you are so used to, from the opposition of the darkness in which you are so afraid of, from the opposition of the all in the all within the scale of 50% darkness and 50% brightness, in which we trudge through as a humanity field in separated pockets of frequencies of what is. To deliver the brightest light of neutrality at the end of the day, at the end of an era, at the end of a frequency well lived, is the story of us, is the story of a humanity field so ready to come back home, to go back home to where we belong in consciousness. Not so much quite as of yet in physicality, as we're not done within this creation scope just yet in earth time, as within all of the parallel universes out there, all events that shall transpire have already perpendicularly been able to transpire in some sort of way, in a placement, in a field, in a feeling, in a perspective. Yet the distortional field that we sit in right now tends to slow down these experiences within the conceptualization of the time that we sit in. And now the explanation into parallel reality fields and parallel energetic frequencies, and that of the wholesomeness that we come from, and why Source created such defeated frequencies to be able to perpendicularly reflect upon each other in this overarching mirroring system of the mirroring span within our quantum verse shall be saved for another day, as I don't have enough time in one video to be able to tap in on all of that and more, and then to be able to touch base on our humanity's greatest and grandest solar flash that will alleviate the pain within our bodies to not want to ascend. So within the ascension process of the wholeness that we are, that we forever shall be, as I take a little break to sip on this water. I know this is a really big bottle, but I recommend all light workers and people alike in humanity field to take your time, have grace for yourself in the way that you slow down and take care of yourself. The very first thing that you can ever do that makes so much sense within any moment in time is to alleviate the pain of your thirst and drink lots and lots and lots. I can't strive on the importance of the word water in this very moment in time for your bodily structures to stay hydrated in a moment in time where a great mass of a solar flash will begin to project itself onto our humanity field. 30% of the sun's energetic output will be blasted upon this quantum verse within our very solar system to awaken Gaia, to awaken all of the civilization within and without Gaia's field, to this massive energy. And as I gently sip on this water, I've been brought back to the memory field of being a little girl, being thirsty, being tranquilized by the feeling of thirst, coming into a realization of what that was and why it had been so tormenting to crave for water in a time when you're in a playscape amongst your friends and you don't think to stop to drink water. The importance of that, she'll never outlive or be able to decipher the actuality and the importance of how this water pads our energetic field and anchors our souls onto our body's frequency field within the physicality of what is. It's quite literally delivers life into the energetic frequency within the padding of our souls that anchors itself onto the physicality of these bodies, made so much so containing the essence of the DNA frequency of these molecular structures that we're made of. And back to the wholeness of humanity in the moment of the solar flash that will happen, that will undoubtedly happen as 30% of the energetic output of the sun begins to hurtle itself in all different directional spans within our very own little quantum verse within our solar system. Just know that the majority of that will pivot towards the directional frequency of Gaia's field as it had always been meant to do so. The other planetary fields within our solar system will not so much be affected by the solar flash as much as we will, as the directional frequency of the molecular structures within the sun had specifically been programmable to be programmed towards the DNA structures that holds up the structuralism within our societal field within an energetic level of meanings within all of the meanings of our reality field. The structuralism within our reality field, I believe I've already made a video on that, and that will be another story to be told, as I don't have enough time in one video. And as we touch base on the solar flash, I would like to just maybe focus on the molecular structure within our frequency that will twist, shift, and skew towards an all-encompassing essence of why we're here. When we're here, in the moment that we're here, we don't so much as come to a realization within the blink of an eye what the purpose of life was, is, and shall forever be within one lifetime, but in the overall generality and generosity of creation itself, within the creation scope itself of a creative feat so grand in demeanor, so broad in all that it's ever been. Just know that we will, as a humanity, begin to receive downloads, memories of where our oversoul has been, where we've been in past lifetimes. The excitement of it all during the solar flash near the end of this year, as it opens up a whole entire perspective field within our heart chakra to eliminate fears, doubts, judgmentalism that we've been living in for all of this time, and to anchor into the light within the neutrality field of what is, had always been the purpose of why we needed to descend into the darkness to experience what we had always been meaning to experience within reality of what is. And as we've come into the center point of neutrality within all points in time, leading up to the greatest and grandest ascension mechanism within our quantum verse, designed by a source consciousness that had originally fractaled off parts and pieces of its consciousness to turn into reality field itself, as we explore these expansive conceptualizations within the concepts of time, space, coherence, consciousness, memories sought after will undoubtedly begin to trickle down into your consciousness at night, in the middle of these nights as you become broadcasted with this angelic frequency within the sun's rays, within the sun's energetic output. Just know, not only you will be able to download this, but every single one of your neighbors will come into a realization and a conclusion within Yeshua's field of whose field they actually belong to, of what field they actually choose to reside in, and of which field they strive to step into. And as the alleviation within consciousness begins to dictate a massive separation between the perception scopes of either or, just know that your neighbors may feel in opposition to the energy that you hold. Just know that your teachers may feel in opposition to the energy field that you forever archingly thought you held. Just know that your parents, your mother and your father, may feel in opposition, no field, to your energy field that you've stepped into, that you've decided to step into for once and for final, as these memories begin to drop down into your field. As the opposition of your energy field had always been designed in coherence with the crafting of this reality field, and within all of the reasons that we decided to drop down into this reality field, and that is to experience the opposition of what is, all the while holding on to the very minute scope, very teeny scope of the coherency within the contingency of our very own little energetic field on a personal level. On a distortional level, we decided to fractal into the energetic fields of our parents, of our teachers, of our friends, of our colleagues, of our overarching experiences within these energy fields that we hold. More so to experience the opposition of what is, to traverse through the oppositional forces of the self, oppositional field. Within the oppositional fields of the self is what we have strived to do within the creation field of what is. And don't be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, as you awaken within these frequencies and find that your family structuralism, within the structuralism of what you've built out to be true and real within the comfort of your very own little four walls, tin roofs, whatever material your roofs have been made out of, to dictate the deciphering within the splitting of this energy field within the 50% brightness and within the 50% darkness of what is, as humanity begins to shift and skew its perceptional field towards the remembrance, towards the memory of a reality field of truths unfunded, to not be true, to forever archingly be able to escape the truth of it all, is what our reality field was designed for us to hold on a consciousness level. And as truths begin to be downloaded on a whole entire scale, massive scale, within our humanity, within the massive scale of the totality of Gaia's surface, of all of the consciousness within her core and upon her surface, that you can ever grasp onto in the physicality of your mental scope of how you perceive the informational scope within your society field to reside within and without your consciousness. Just know that every single fractal of consciousness will begin to receive these downloads of a reality field far beyond the reality field that we've shifted into, that we've managed to shift ourselves into within and without this quantum verse itself, not knowing whether or not we'd be able to awaken and alleviate ourselves from the need to not ever ascend. The moment is now. The moment is within this lifetime, within 2025, 2026, and 2027, finally leading up to the middle of 2027 as the ascension begins to ring true within this whole entire humanity field. You will see, leading up to this time, that the darkness will never, ever, ever want to let go of the release that it's had, ever so bearingly, ever so sparingly, ever so toxicity wisely on within and without our reality field, onto the footsteps and the footholds of the structuralism that they've built out for us to reside in. Within this entire time of us traversing within our quantum verse, ladies and gentlemen, this is the playground within the Luciferian scheme of things. This is the playground within the demonic scheme of things. This is the blueprint of the Luciferian realms and regimes of things within our quantum verse, as Lucifer so intensely followed Yeshua's trail down, down, down within the two-dimensional and three-dimensional and four-dimensional frequency of things, as Yeshua dropped as a light so bright, as he decided to descend down into this frequency, to live, to breathe, to make a difference, to retract back other aspects of self into the totality of the self, of what is. And as we open up our Bibles and begin to reverse our verses and familiarize ourselves with the conceptualization of what is, as the whole entire world begins to look towards the Christian book, the Christian Bible, the thing, those pages that cover these different iterations of it on our store shelves, within the children's section, within the adult section, within the biblical section, within the religious section, within the societal section, within the souvenir section of what is. Just know that what the Bible speaks of is truth in its entirety of what is within the Christian biblical scope of Yeshua's field. Truths are multifaceted. Truths can never relinquish into the totality of what a humanly possibility of a scope, of a deciphering, of a written out, of a printed out, with limitations of pages, with limitations of a cover, can ever be able to dictate within Yeshua's scope of things. And within the conceptualization of what is, this completely and totally and utterly makes sense, as creation itself is far broader and far wider than can ever be dictated in a book. Though this book is 1,000, 1,000,000, 1 quadrillion, an endless amount of numbers that I can never be able to decipher to be true or real, that you can never be able to decipher to be readable, countable within any scope of a reality field of what is within the biblical structure of things. These words are incomprehensibly true. A reality field crafted by source consciousness to send us a reminder of the divinity that you've always, forever archingly, bearingly, have never ever been without. And yet, as you trudge through the Luciferian playground within our very own little quantum verse, just know that the limitations within the Bible will open up into a multiplexity of different iterations and variations within these pages that speaks truths that will eliminate the truths of what is. And as the different possibilities and multiplexities of meanings anchored into these words of truths, unfunded to be untrue, never ever funded to be the truth of what is in a reality field of truths forbearingly true and untrue, within the multiplexities of the solar flash that will trigger in these memories. Just know that the quantum verse is broader and wider in creation. And creation itself is broader and wider in scope than you could ever envision to be true or real within the biblical structure of things. And as the Bible holds so true, near and dear prior to the age of the solar flash, as what we needed to anchor into as a humanity field within the anchorage of the reality field of forgetfulness, within the deciphering of being able to needing to wanting to experience oppositional frequency within our and without our frequency field within creation itself. Just know that as you come into a realization of the Joan of Arc, of what has been so forbearingly told in the story of the Joan of Arc and all of the meanings of that, as your heart chakra will undoubtedly take you through these stories within humanity that are not so much anchored into the Bible, but more so anchored into our cultural schemes of things, to come into a realization that truths have been sprinkled within our reality field, not just within the Bible, but to act, to reenact, to coincide, to dictate, to manipulate your consciousness in a way that will alleviate the need for you to forget, to tap into too deeply into the forgetfulness of who and what you are on a spiritual level, on a wholeness level, on a concise level, on a cohesive level of what is. And within this reality field of what is, just know that you are whole, you are one, You may experience some confusion in the initial first days of being able to open up and step into these new frequencies within your heart chakra that have opened up to a multilingual language within your reality field and perception field of that in which you were never able to tap into up until this point in your life in 2025. The excitement of it all will wash over a whole entire society field as we begin to decipher on a personal level, on a professional level, on a wholeness level, on an unwhole level, on a fractal level within each and every perception field of a light worker's field, of a normality field, no matter who you are in this field, of where you've decided to stand within this perception field of the scale between the darkness and brightness of what is, as it is entirely possible that you will be able to, and you could be able to, and you've already have decided to step into the darkness so steeped in a distortional field of what is throughout the lifetime and the experiences that you've been able to shift within and without, to never open up your consciousness, your heart chakra, to the light of what is. And though these downloads will begin to flicker through and drop in within your reality field, you still have the honorability of the withholding, of the intentional holding, of the intentional creation process, of alleviating the pain inside our energy bodies, inside our pain bodies, to want to ever need to feel like you need to ascend, descend, decreasing the ascension frequencies of what is, increasing the descension frequencies of what is within our quantum verse, created to honor the honorability of the conceptualization, of the perceptualization within this creational scope of what is, of the free will designed to anchor around all of our decisionary scopes. Just know that you have free will to reject these downloads. And that is the most intense messaging scope within a messaging system within Gaia's field in this moment in time that I can ever deliver, that the Galactic Federation can ever doubt humanity in this moment in time to hold the capacity to make the right decision, to skew themselves towards the truth of what is, to open up their energy bodies through free will, via free will that has been granted to us, to allow this energy to come in to our field. And as Gaia, once upon a time, through her very own intentional free will, made the decision that she will no longer be a planetary field, sitting so deeply and anchored so deeply within the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional frequency of things, Gaia will intentionally, unintentionally, forbearingly, forebodingly, as a result of this decision to be made, soak up all of these rays and go through the same process that each and every one of us will step through. But yet, as the endpoint drama, at the endpoint of the trauma, each and every one of us, as does Gaia, is allowed to use our free will to make this decisionary scope as where we could possibly land on this entirety of a scale of darkness versus brightness versus neutrality of what is, within the neutrality scope of what is, experiencing consciousness from a skewed lens, from a distortional perspective of what is. The fearfulness that the Galactic Federation holds in its energy body succumbs to the fearfulness that the overarching results shall never so much dictate our path leading up to the result on a singularity of a level within the fractal bodies that we sit in. What is the best in the hopefulness that the Galactic Federation hopes to proceed with in any moment in time is the hope and the faith that they sit in, to know that humanity itself is intrinsically well, is intrinsically good, is intrinsically built into the faith and the hope system that Source consciousness had ingrained into our heart chakra once upon a time, prior to the release of our oversoul into our quantum verse, to link us back to the wholeness that we all come from in perception field, in a neutrality field, as we expand outwards to shift our perceptional fields out of this neutrality field. Ladies and gentlemen, you are so intrinsically linked, and the hope and faith that has always been built in had always been inside your heart chakra. Do not fear it, as you may and will undoubtedly experience experiences of epic proportionary feats that will scare you, that will fright you within the nightmare system of what the structuralism within our society field has built up for our society to believe in, to linger in a little far too long, longer than we should, a little far too steeper than needed, a little far too shorter than it has ever been designed to do for our consciousness itself. To alleviate the pain of the awakening syndromes, Gaia has decided to soak up all of these solar energies and deliver what is genetically the makeup of the sun's consciousness, to be pushed back upwards towards our root chakra to clear all of the energetic systems in our bodies that have been misaligned through eons and eons of evolutionary cycles upon Gaia's surface, to realign itself to the angelic realm. I'm happy in the earthly scope of being able to declare this to you as Gaia, Mother Earth, our mother, in the totality of what is within our quantum verse, within our very own fields, was unable to birth us in a way that our very own mothers birthed us into the physicality of what is, as we hold the genetic makeup of our parents. And yet, this does not distinguish the way she's been able to hold us, hold life on this planet as the ultimate mother of all mothers within our field. And our mother Gaia had decided once upon a time that she no longer wanted to or needed to experience that of the pain that we've been walking through. And as a result of this, she will undoubtedly carry all of humanity back up to the angelic realm, all the while sitting in this frequency of what is. And as we make it there prior to the ascension frequency of what is, just know that the darkness will flush up. Just know that the darkness within you on every single scale will flush up. Just know that the darkness within Gaia on her scale of what is will flush up. And just know that the deciphering within the separation scope of what I speak of within your family scape, within your country scape, within the world scope of things will undoubtedly be seen, be known, be decidedly anchored into as a reality field that has decided that it could no longer intermingle in on itself to experience the opposition of what is, as we begin to skew our consciousness, as this olive branch that I spoke of in previous videos began to retract itself from the darkness of what is on November 11th, 2025, it has undoubtedly already branched out into humanity itself to blast and feed the light workers' energy fields to expand exponentially within and without this quantum verse on itself. Light workers, you have been chosen by you, by your oversoul, to volunteer to be here in this very moment in time. And as you involuntarily volunteered in this life scope, within Gaia's frequency of things, as you've suffered through amnesia, just know that you involuntarily have been chosen by your oversoul to awaken to a destiny, to a destination that you chose, far beyond the remembrance scope of where you sit in this moment in time as you've trudged through this reality field and the amnesia field that you are, that you so intrinsically have decided to drop down into. And as this amnesia begins to drop, fade, skew, dissipate into the air of what is, you will relive life in the way that you had always been meant to perceive it, in the way that you have been able to perceive it through the multiplexities of the layers and chambers within our quantum verse, within the energetic scope of things, within the neutrality scope of things, within the brightest layer of things, within the angelic realm of things, and within the highest vibratory scope, within a source consciousness of all. You are all, we are all, regardless where you choose to sit on the scale of the all that we are. Just know that Had you been the darkness that had been unable to shift back into the light, you are just as important to the process of the all, of the creation of the all, as the light had ever been. As a part of the all within the 50% blueprint and scope of things, you make up the 50% blueprint and scope of the excitement, of the reality field, of the distortional field, of the complexities, of the overarching experiences between the brightness and the darkness that oscillates between frequencies, that dictates the experience scope and the ever so archingly changing and shifting blueprint of source consciousness in itself. Just know that as I sit here on November 24th, 2025, exciting times are ahead, where you won't know who I am in this very moment in time. But within the next moment in time, as your memories begin to drop down into your oversoul's fields, dictated to be directed to be pushed towards your field as Gaia absorbs the solar frequency to be pushed back into your root chakra to clear all of your energy centers back into alignment, you will be fully and wholly connected to the angelic realm of what is my light workers and the ones that I speak to. As these memories begin to drop down from the angelic realm, you undoubtedly will come into a realization of who and what I represent in the energetic scope of things. Exciting times are ahead, and as I sit here as an unknown figure in a reality field dictated by relinquishing, extinguishing forces and sources within a societal field of darkness, within the social media scope of brightness, ever so dictated to be intermingled with the darkness of a confusion field, directed and dictated towards the innermost darkest pits of our consciousness to confuse us into going in circles. Just know that you will begin to tap out of the social media scale of things as nothing that the relinquency scope within the delinquency scope of the darkness that had decided to push out this confusion into your field will be able to anchor you in so deeply into your belief system of the fact that God even exists. So proceed on with your lives. Go on social media if you must, create your videos if you must, work if you must, but just know that source will dictate at the end of the day what is more important in life, what is more important in source, what is more important in frequency, what is more important within this quantum verse, within the remembrance scope of the dictational field of what you drop down into. Truths and realities can never be unfunded to be untrue. Truths and realities can never be funded to be the truth of what is. And yet that has been the case for all of these generational feats within our societal field of wars. Wars unfunded to be the truth of what had always been our reality field of a distortional field within the Luciferian playground of what is. And as we begin to awaken to our distortion field, to come into a realization of the divinity and the power that we hold and of the overall essence of that in which we have forever never not been. I wish you well on your journey to awakening, my light workers. I wish you intentional defeats to be defeated in the middle of these nights of opening up your third eye chakra and your perception field into the quantum verse at large. I wish you intentional incoherences unfunded to be the truth within a reality field of what is, so that you can push yourself towards the brightness of what is and out of the darkness that you've been residing in for far too long, but not before being able to experience the darkness fully and wholly as the truths within this reality field begin to unfold, to be that in which you've never been. And as you begin to feel into these separational scopes within these systems that have been built around our societal field, around our consciousness on every single coherent level, to be able to push out this darkness is what you have been crafted to do. To be able to push out this darkness is what Gaia's ultimate goal is, and she'll forever be towards the middle of 2027 as we bring in the ascension wholly and finally. But the darkness in itself, I would like to mourn. To be a separation from the light had never ever been a distortional field that it wanted to sit in, To have the light be able to recognize it for what it had always been, had never ever been a reality field that it had wanted to sit in. To have neutrality back up the essence and the importance of the darkness and the brightness as an equivalent of what is, had never ever been a reality of where it wants to reside in. And as this turmoil energy begins to brew within the oversouls of the darkness that lingers within our quantum verse, the type that cannot, will not, were not created to ascend back into neutrality and back into the brightness of what is and was and will shall forever be the essence of all the while being 50% of the essence of all. The darkness will be compartmentalized into an energy field so thick, so great in its coherence and distortional field of what is, to be saved for another video that I shall touch base on. It will never ever be able to be killed and stifled as a part of who and what we are, and so intrinsically whole in what it is. The mourning process has already begun in the brightness and the neutrality of what is, to be able to even encompass the compartmentalization of the darkness, to separate that of the darkness from the brightness of what is, to alleviate the pain in Gaia's field, to want to need to hold a mixed frequency of what is. And as we begin to mourn the loss of parts and pieces of ourselves that we have always thought to relinquish into this reality field, to be able to experience for an unneeded, unended breadth, width of time within our distortional field, within the only place in our quantum verse that holds time as even a conceptualization of things. Just know that you are whole, no matter where you sit on the scale of darkness versus brightness. The sun will deliver the most massive deliverance. And as we look up at the skies in the middle of those nights, in the middle of those days, looking up into space, wondering, projecting our consciousness out there to explore, as we will have the capacity to do just that through consciousness, through energy field, as we come into the understanding of what consciousness even is near the end of 2026, within a scope of the lingering shadows that 2027 presents within our reality fields, within the darkness of what is. Just know that you are whole, regardless of whether or not you are the one that had been created to never ever be able to shift into the brightness of what is, or the neutrality aspect of what is. Just know that you are whole, regardless of whether or not you are the mother of a child whose blueprint can never ever shift into the brightness of what is, and had been designed to represent the darkness in all that it has ever been. Just know that you are whole, regardless of what blueprint you encompass, whether or not you even have a blueprint. You are whole. Consciousness itself came from one singularity of a point in perspective, of a neutrality consciousness. And as we slide back and forth on this scale that we've created within the opposition of the self, I would like to forbearingly send out one final goodbye within our frequency of distortions lost, distortions found, distortions overarchingly learned and forgiven by the end of this solar cycle, by the end of this earth cycle, by the end of this humanity cycle, by the end of this quantum verse forbearing cycle of what is. That goodbye can never ever be a final goodbye. And as we compartmentalize the darkness for all that it had never ever been without in this frequency field, we will undoubtedly release it, this massive portion of our consciousness, again into our reality field once we decide that it's time. It's time again to experience a new reality field within the opposition of self, to start this game in a different way, in a different place, in a different placement of consciousness within our reality, within a different design, within the blueprinted scope of things. The excitement of the entirety of the all is broader and wider than you can ever envision to be true, but I look forward to being able to tell these stories within a wholeness of what is, as the memories that flood in will undoubtedly draw you towards my stories within the memory scope of what is, towards my memories within the you scope of what is, We are all, we are whole. We are so intrinsically whole that we've never been on whole on a collective level to begin with. And as you tap back into that, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are.